Hello, family, friends, and neighbors. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, and as promised, we're going to read and discuss the Magi, or the three kings, or the three wise men, as, um, as they're called variously. Many of us, even who have not read the Bible, know the story of the three kings or the three wise men. When I was a kid, and I'm sure some of you have the same experience, my grandmother, who was not a materialistic person, wanted a very nice nativity. And she searched and searched until she found one that was probably a little more costly than she could afford, but she saved her money and she bought the nativity set that she wanted. And the wise men, or the kings, were arrayed in kingly garments and royal garments. They wore crowns, and one was atop a camel, and the other one was leading a camel, and the other one, the camel, was laying beside him. So we all believe that there were three of them, that they were royal, and that they came on camels. So we're going to read the story and we're going to find out about how much of that is actually true. So this is in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. We might read a little beyond that after the discussion because much happens. And I am reading from the English Standard Version. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ, that is the Messiah, was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. I do believe that's from the prophet Micah, but we'll look that up and I will include it in the description down below. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So there is some interesting notes here which we may read, but I want to comment on that. It doesn't say kings, and it doesn't say there are three of them. It says that they are wise men. And the number 3, I think, came from the number of gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I have heard some very fascinating viewpoints as to who these three wise men may be. They fascinate everyone. And I think that we're not told the details of who they are for a very good reason, which I will get to. And I think you probably already know the answer. So after studying them myself, after being very fascinated and following a lot of online teaching courses on them, uh, it has since been found that they were not Zoroastrian priests, which is what uh, many scholars believe them to be. They weren't intergalactic space travelers. I've heard that as well. They were very likely hereditary priests out of Persia, not unlike the tribe of Levi. So Aaron, the brother of Moses, all of his descendants, the Levites, were set aside by God to be priests in Israel, the holy men, those who ministered in the temple. And these three wise men were much the same, I believe, from everything that I have studied, much the same, only out of Persia. And their interest in a king of the Jews would have been because Judea, a land a little bit beyond where they are from, which to us would be Iran, Iraq, that area, Babylon, was in turmoil. It was being run by the Romans. It was occupied by the Romans. It was not a friendly government. And Herod was friendly with the Romans. And so he was trying to bridge a gap between his people in Judah, the Jews, and the Romans. And he needed the Romans. He ruled at their whim or at their permission, in other words. So the Persian wise men, who would have been loyal to their Medo-Persian king at the time, Persian king at the time, would have had insight. And we know that they had insight into Judaism because of the gifts they brought. They brought gold, which spoke to the divinity, the royalty, of this newborn king. And they brought frankincense, which spoke to his divinity, and they brought myrrh, which spoke to his sacrifice and death. So they understood what those gifts symbolized in Judaism. And they came from a different government, from a different culture, from a different religion to worship or to pay homage, would be more the word, to this king of the Jews. And they came to the current king of the Jews for information, and all they managed to do was alert Herod. They clearly know that Herod isn't now going to have this heir to the throne of David's best interest at heart. So once they find the child, they go back to following the star. And once they find the child, they return to their home country via a different route because they know Herod's soldiers and perhaps Roman soldiers will be looking for them. So here's the most significant thing about the three wise men. It's not anything about them at all. They may not have been kings. They more than likely weren't. They didn't hold special powers, although they were very learned men and they did have knowledge of the Jewish Messiah. And they brought gifts symbolic of Judaism, but also of great value. So the obvious is true because of the time they were living in, the Roman occupation, and Herod not really being a very good king of the Jews. He certainly wasn't going to bring about peace, which we all know that the Messiah will. So basically, they were foreign emissaries that came to fund a regime change. Some of the other things that we think we know is that, or that we believed early on that may not be so, is that Jesus may no longer have been a baby. They were probably still in Bethlehem, but they could have been in Nazareth. it says that the Bible, what we just read, said that they found the child. It doesn't say infant wrapped in swaddling clothes. They found the child with his mother. So they could have journeyed to Nazareth and saw Jesus as a 2-year-old. And remember in what I just read that Herod did ask them when they first saw the star. So he reckoned that date and imagines that the child was either coming or could be about 2 years old. So those are some, when we start to study the Bible on January 3rd, we're going to forget everything we ever learned and we're going to relearn it from Scripture, from the Word of God. So the wise men are not anyone, they didn't belong to any religion that we need to learn more about and try to get secret knowledge from. God basically wanted us to know that they came for Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMesshiah. They wanted world peace. So let's read a little further. Now, when they had departed, that is the wise men, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. So that gives us a few more clues that the wise men probably found Jesus or Yeshua, his mother and Joseph, in Bethlehem or near Bethlehem. But he could have been 2 years old. And children were slain up to 2 years old in and around that area. So, and this fulfilled prophecies. We talked about in the last upload that Jesus himself walked with the disciples, at least 2 of them, on the way to Emmaus, which is a 7-mile walk from Jerusalem. So this was a 7-mile Bible study where Jesus did an exposition of the Tanakh, the Old Testament passages, starting from Moses. Those are the first 5 books of the Bible, meaning from Genesis through the prophets that were about him. So when Matthew is writing that these prophecies are fulfilled in Jesus, Matthew knows because Jesus himself, the risen Jesus, told them. So that's it. The Magi are not nearly as fascinating as Yeshua HaMesshiah, as Jesus the Christ or the Messiah. And that is where our focus is. And I do want to add one more thing about whether we are entering the tribulation or whether the tribulation was gone after AD 70 and the millennial reign is over or still in process and we're in Satan's little season. I don't know for certain where we are. I don't think anyone can. But in either case, we are seeking the Messiah. And if we're wise, we'll keep our eyes on that star. In all cases, we are waiting for the return of the Messiah. Thank you.